Hi, I'm Andy Banks. I was the animator and one of the graphic artists that works on Panoptica.
My name's Craig Whyte. I'm the director of Panoptica, a sci-fi film that we shot for the 360 cinema event.
The media that we used was a mixture, so some of it was captured, some of it we shot, and some of it we made completely in post-production. There were certain things where how the space and the screen linked together, you just wouldn't have known until you saw it live, and then we went, we would have tweaked that bit of footage and moved it round. So that would have been nice if we could have seen it first, maybe, and then we could have gone back and done the last edit, you know. Because I think we discovered afterwards that the Ladybug camera footage was really nice, and it really worked well. But the amount of time which was required to set up the scenes and finding the right space to do it in obviously took a lot longer. But I think we both were really happy, weren't we, with how it looked, the footage when it came out. Because there's one major scene that we both, was one of our favourite scenes in the film, which was shot with that. And while I personally would like to have done a few more scenes with it, although the time wasn't there, I think, every 2 hours you spend in preparation is 10 hours less editing later. So, that's always the case, but especially with 360. And obviously you're always thinking about what's going on behind the camera. It's a completely different mindset. You have to think about everything that's happening in that space.
I think when you make in 360, you are making, in effect, 5 screens. You are making, I think, so for those who have made a single screen short or something like that, I would say times that by 5, the length of time it takes to make a single screen. Because it's a lot more difficult.
Because our original film was, 17 minutes?
Yeah.
So it's only 17 minutes, but for each one of those screens that we were pushing out of After Effects was roughly 17 hours to get us the animation file. That animation file was then turned into an H.264. We then put all the H.264s back into Final Cut, which is what we use for the rough edit, put them all together, and then try to get an idea how they're working together. But of course, until you get them all together, even as animation files, you don't always notice the timing differences or a slight mistake or something that's moved. So at that point, you've got to go back to After Effects and you're starting the whole process again. So it's very, very time consuming. The last bit I don't think we really realised quite how much time we were going to be spending in post-production. We were about a week over, weren't we, when we should have finished. And that was working long hours as well to get it all finished. And I think as well, the other thing that is worth considering is when you're doing the post-production, you've got to remember that people aren't viewing this the way that you're viewing it as you're editing it. They're in the 360. You have to give them time to react to something that happens behind. If you're chopping and changing, things happening too quick from front to back, you need to give them the time to adjust and look at what the change is.
And it's good to have a good grasp of the technical know-how, or know someone who knows.
Yeah, one of you's got to be proficient in that at least. Yeah.
I mean, the program that really worked for us is After Effects, and After Effects isn't like Final Cut. It plays things in real time, unless you have to render it, and it only renders a small section that plays in real time. Ours took a considerable amount of time because the amount of animation that was going on.
Yeah.
In the film.
And as well, obviously the sound, because we got our rough cuts out, which went to the sound guy, but a few how we wanted the sound to work actually affected the edit again. So we had to go back and change a couple of things, which we weren't expecting until we started putting the sound together. So yeah, I mean, like Craig said, whatever time you've got in your head, times it by 5.
If you even more time.
Yeah.
But I mean that's.
But the more planning you do, the more that you can plan it before you start filming, the more streamlined that process will be afterwards.
I mean, what's interesting is that the actual shooting of the film took 4 days? Was it about 4 days?
4, and then another bit of studio, yeah.
And then the rest was in the edit. We were just in there for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is humongously, more than the actual shoot. The ratio,
Again, that's totally different to normal filming, in some respects. So, yeah.
I think any filmmaker would see this as a great opportunity to try something different to the practice that they already practice. I think it would enhance their filmmaking, I think, because in a way you are kind of got the challenge of not being able to use edits, and it seems that you've got less control that you do with single screen. and you kind of have to. There's a whole different discipline when making 360 film. We found from, especially making narrative-driven films.
You think of it much more as a theatre piece, doing 360 than traditional film, because the way that you think about the space, obviously, because the user, the person who's watching it, could be in a different part of the space. You know, they're interacting with it a lot more than you normally would with film. Obviously, as to how they turn their head and what they look at, you know, they're re-editing it as they look at it. So it's very much like theatre in the round or something as to how you approach it, I think.